Welcome to The Winning Edge, the podcast where champions are built and legacies are made. I'm Leonard Wheeler, former NFL player turned entrepreneur of 24 years and co-executive director of the NFL Legends community. After years of being on the field, I've learned that the real game starts when the stadium lights go out. This show is your all-access pass to the mindset, strategies, and leadership lessons that fuel success beyond sports. Each week, we will dive into what it truly takes to win in business, leadership, and life. We'll discuss how elite athletes, game-changing entrepreneurs, and industry leaders turn discipline into dominance and setbacks into comebacks. The next play is yours.
Leonard, congratulations on your brand new podcast, The Winning Edge.
Yes, let's go. I'm excited. Thank you so much, Kimberly Lovi, for all of your expertise, for your guidance, for your continued push for me to start this podcast. I thank you so much in so many different levels.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, don't make me cry from the beginning, but truly, you guys, I'm so happy for Leonard. I'm so happy for you, Leonard, and I'm happy for your audience because I can tell you we all want more from you. And there is so much wisdom and information, education, entertainment coming at everybody who is listening, and they have no idea what's coming. And I am so absolutely excited. And just to kind of kick you off for your very first episode.
Yes.
I thought that I could maybe be a little bit in the driver's seat on your show just this one time. And
Let's do it.
I want to interview you, Mr. Wheeler,
Uh-oh.
because you are a very, very special person. And I think the audience probably knows that, but they want to hear more from you. So let's start off with, who is this podcast for and what can they expect to get out of it?
That's a great question. And The Winning Edge is a podcast literally for everyone, Kimberly. I think that all of us desire to have a winning edge. And sometimes it is just about maybe learning how to ask the right questions, learning how to look in the right direction, maybe leaning on a mentor or someone that can help steer you in the right direction. I know I needed people in my entire life to help steer me in the right direction. From coaches when I was small, to my parents, to people like you, people like Steve Carlos, who connected us, right? And so we all have those instrumental people who are playing that significant role.
1,000%. And I think that you really have such a unique perspective and that you have experienced becoming an NFL athlete, a professional athlete. And that is such a rare occurrence. And most of us have not experienced that, combined with your practical entrepreneurial experiences. And you can draw so many valuable insights between football and business, personal life, and just really connecting those themes of sports and life. And that's just such a unique point of view. And I just want to say for folks listening, this is not a podcast only for men that like football. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs, moms, dads, anyone out there looking for a North Star, maybe that resource, that sort of informal mentorship that Leonard mentioned. And he's going to cover self-improvement, optimizing your life. This podcast is a brand new tool and a new place for inspiration and a source of education to help ground you and launch you into becoming the best version of yourself. So, yeah.
Well said, Kimberly.
Amen to that. Okay, now I'm going to dive in, and I want to also let people know something that I actually did something I almost never do in an interview, which is I actually came with prepared notes. And the reason for that is because before I actually dove into this with Leonard, this adventure in launching his podcast, I was able to get a hold of his book, which is Beyond the Locker Room. Now, you wrote this, like 15 years ago? A long time ago, right?
I wrote it about, I think maybe 10 years ago, something like that.
Okay. So this book, you guys, is so incredible. And I'm not just saying that. It is really an excellent book. So I'm going to be referencing quotes and things like that. And I know that we're going to be talking about a giveaway, how you can get your hands on it, because he might be revising the book. So I want to start with a couple personal questions. So Look, I know you have incredible people in your life that
Yes.
you have attracted into your life through all your good energy, your perspective that you bring. So I know this is going to be a really hard question off the bat,
Okay.
and I apologize for that, but I do need to ask it anyway. So, who has been the single most influential person in your life? And what did you learn from them, or what values did they instill in you?
That's a great question because I've really, really had some amazing people in my life. My foundation is Christ. And that is what my mom instilled in me when I was a small kid. She made us go to church. Even when we didn't want to go to church, she made sure that we were in church every single Sunday. And I would say, outside of the Lord himself, I would say that the most instrumental person in my life has been my mom. I mean, she has been a rock. And I have some amazing people. My wife is amazing. Our kids are amazing. I've had amazing mentors. I have amazing mentors. But I would say, as the foundation of someone that taught me a work ethic, that taught me to stop crying, stand up as a man, live up to my word, show up, right? Don't show up late like I almost did today. But really taught me the values of what life is as a young man. My entire life has been my mom.
Okay, I'm so glad you started with that because that's where I was going to start. So, I actually pulled a couple quotes, and I love that you put this in your book. And this is the perfect kind of lead into this quote, which you said that your mother would say to you, fight your battles on your knees with prayer. And that really showcases the fact that faith is the underpinning of who you are and your contributions and your success. Now, the
Yes.
other thing your mom said to you, and it's very interesting, but she would say, come on, son, get up. With that, can
Yes.
you maybe speak a little bit about overcoming failure?
Oh my gosh. I mean, overcoming failure has been an instrumental part of my growth. Growing up a compulsive stutterer my entire life, all the way into college, you feel that you continue to fail over and over within yourself. And sometimes failure is not something that's metrically or that somebody can quantify, look at, and measure. Failure is something that you continue to do in your own mindset over and over, right? And growing up in the projects, you start to see failure around you and you start to realize what it is to be successful, and then how do I sustain that level, right? How do I sustain it? And so when my mom would say, fight your battle on your knees, she would also follow up and say, when you get up, have a plan. And that's the deal, is that you're gonna fall. You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail in your marriages. You're gonna fail as a parent. You're gonna fail your kids. You're gonna fail your spouse. You're gonna fail your friends. But it doesn't mean you can't overcome it. And that is what I really want everyone to take from the winning edge, is that the winning edge is about creating different ways to overcome something.
I love that. And I love that you also touched on the role that your stutter had played in your development. And I think it's such an interesting paradox because I don't know if folks out there know this, but you actually are now a public speaker,
Yes, and have been for over 25 years.
which is
Yes.
wild. So, can you just speak a little bit about the courage that it took? Anything you want to share on overcoming those fears for folks that might have fears that they battle with?
Yes. I remember I was a senior in college and I had a speaking class, and I literally cried the night before the speaking class. And I cried the night before the speaking class because I was really thinking to myself, like, this is going to be so embarrassing. I'm going to go in this class and I'm going to stutter. And it's not that I didn't know the answer to things, it's that I was afraid because of this fear. And I call it false evidence appearing real. It was real to me. It was false evidence, but it appeared real, which made it real to me. And I remember praying that night, and I never stuttered in that class the entire semester. And I remember saying to myself that this is a fear that I'm going to have to overcome. And it doesn't matter if I've been doing it my whole life. That doesn't matter. And so when I prayed, I'm telling you, the good Lord's hand and my belief in him, I'm telling you, my belief in him. And that's something that I don't take back because I continue to see him being that wind beneath my wing even to this day.
That is just so big. You are just dropping so much. People are going to be taking notes and replaying this 1,000 times and saving this episode. By the way, save the episode because these are the types of things you do want to keep replaying. Now, there's something else that you really talked about that is so important and it's not talked about enough. And you really talked about this notion of meritocracy or earning your spot. Can you please speak about earning trust as a leader? Or even someone out there listening, maybe they're just trying to earn a promotion or a leadership type role. Can you just speak about how someone can really become a valued team member to earn their spot?
I would say show up consistently. You have so many people today, and I have to say today, 2025, sometimes we feel that if we just show up, it's enough. Showing up is not just enough. It's a beginning, but it's not just enough for me to trust you, right? If you show me consistently that I can trust you, if you come to practice every day and you show me your effort, that you're saying to me, trust me, I can trust to put you in the game. I can trust to put you as a leader in my company. I can trust you because you're showing up consistently. Then I don't have a choice. I really don't. I don't have a choice but to say, you know what? That person has earned their merit for me to trust them and put them in this position. So I'm going to give you this opportunity because you have continued to show me consistently that you're going to show up and you're going to show up with excellence.
I love that. This is so important. These are really the jewels behind successful people that people don't talk about. You don't see this on social media, the showing up, the rolling up your sleeves, the hard work, the failure.
Doing the little things, right, Kim?
Yes.
And stop complaining. I'm telling you, if people could just stop complaining long enough to show up consistently, they would receive so many different levels of trust from their leadership team, from their constituents, from their comrades, if you just stop complaining.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the thing. And this is, I think, a defining point about a leader versus, maybe a follower or just a participant is problem solving, problem solution, right? So that's the difference is bringing, yes, identifying the problem. That's one thing, but what's the solution or what are our options? So it's very important that as someone that's standing up as a leader, they bring solutions to the table. And when you're complaining, you're not doing that, are you?
And Kim, I can tell you one other thing that you brought to the table was emotional stability. So from an emotional intelligence perspective, when I teach on emotional intelligence, I talk about being able to breathe and listen and take it in. Let's just find a solution so that we can move forward.
Okay, now listen. We need to talk about change. This is a really big one. And this change can be, there's people going through, maybe they got laid off. I know a lot of us, we don't like to change, especially as adults. What tips do you have? Because you seem to have been very well prepared kind of with this NFL experience. Help us out. Help us.
So, looking prepared and being prepared is totally different because looking prepared is outwardly. Being prepared is inwardly. And so maybe I looked prepared, but I was so afraid of the unknown and I was shaking. I remember looking out of my windows in my office when I was leaving the game and I could feel the depression that was happening real time. I could feel the fear and I could feel the anxiety. I could feel the failure of not leading my family correctly. I could feel the fear of not trusting the Father the way I've always trusted him. And this is what I can say is that don't try to change on your own. Like change is a partnership. Change is something that you reach out and you allow other people to play a significant role in where you want to go. Because sometimes you don't know the answers. You don't know. In my book, I call it the black hole. Because you don't know how deep it is. You don't know how wide it is. You just know you're in a hole and it's dark. And you're like, what the crap? I'm in a freaking hole and no one knows that I'm here. How am I going to be able to ask for help? Who do I ask for help? Where do I even reach? And so what's happened over the years is that we've been able to put these programs together through the NFL, through Tracy Perlman and Troy Vincent, who's been so instrumental. And then all of our guys who came together and put together these programs to help us transition correctly, right? Because Kim, it is a team that transition. And I've always been a part of team. And I didn't know how to look for team anymore at times.
I'm so glad you brought up team because you jumped ahead. Are you stealing my script?
No, I did not.
I'm just kidding. Okay. So yes, I think you're a great example of reaching out for resources and team. You do it naturally and you teach this, but what do we do in terms of teamwork to be successful?
I look at a 4x4 track meet, right? You hand off the baton to the next person. The person starts, they hand off to the second leg runs, hands off to the third leg runs, hands off to the final leg. But guess what? The first leg, they're not the one that came through the finish line, but they are part of the team. They were so significant in the team winning. This is the biggest thing about team. Stop always thinking that you have to be the one to lead and finish. Like sometimes you're not going to be the one in front. You can lead from the back. There's a book called Great Leaders Lead from the Back, right? Great leaders don't always have to be in front. You don't always have to be in front. But when you have to be in front, I need for you to level up and own that responsibility as well, right? But team is about how do I invest in you even if I know you can take my position? That's what we had to do in the NFL. We had to mentor people that we knew would end up being starters over us.
Wow.
But that is a part of team. Team is, what's the goal? Goal is to win the Super Bowl. Got it. How do we do that? Play our role. Got it. Okay. What do I need to do to play my role? Study my book. Got it. All right. How do I study my book? Okay. Look at some of the veterans who are doing it the right way. Ask questions. Team is about being inclusive, right? And not ostracizing yourself from a place of fear and insecurity, but it's about bringing people into that area of success and you guys create success together.
I love it. And so here's the thing, I think, besides operating from the fact that you could be very insecure, that's a really big deal right there. Another big deal and something that becomes a challenge in teams, and I know you speak on this and you actually address this in your work that you do. What advice do you have for people that are on a team and they either don't get along with their boss, they don't care for their teammates? What are your thoughts on how to navigate that situation?
You know, it really goes back to the emotional intelligence. It really does. And it also goes back to, I don't go on teams to like everybody. I go on teams to respect everybody. And I go on teams for other people, hopefully they will respect me as well. But you're not going to like everybody that you're working with, but how do you not allow that to interfere emotionally when it comes to doing your job and bringing that other person in to work with you? And that's what's happened. I've been on NFL teams and college teams and high school teams. I did not like the people. And some of them, I didn't like the coaches either, by the way. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean, what's that?
I said name names. I'm just kidding.
But it doesn't mean that I don't do my job. You know, it really doesn't. It shouldn't stop me from doing my job. And you see it happen all the time. My wife is a nurse manager, and I'm sure it happens at the hospital. I'm not going to say it happens because that's her story to tell. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of people that allow them not liking somebody or somebody not liking them. Oh my gosh, they don't like me. Why should I speak to them? How old are you? And so sometimes I really want to ask those questions from an emotional perspective.
Oh my God. By the way, we do have to take one moment and just say shout out to your lovely, beautiful wife, Kim.
Today's her birthday. Happy birthday, little boo. She is, I'm not going to say how old she is, but today's her birthday. And we're doing this podcast on her birthday. And I want to say, baby, happy birthday. I love you.
And I want to say the same. Baby, happy birthday, and I love you.
But she had a great day today, though. And we're getting ready to go to the Super Bowl.
I'm so excited. I better be her best friend by the time that's over.
Yes, we're getting ready to go to the Super Bowl. So we'll be there for like 8 days.
That'll be awesome. Oh my
Yes.
God. And by the way, you better give your audience as much. I know there's probably a lot you can't share, but whatever you can share, we would love an episode about the behind the scenes of what that might be like, but only to the extent, we don't want to get you in trouble. Anything that you could share.
I'm going to share stories, and I'm going to share video, and I'm going to share pictures.
We're sitting here waiting. We cannot wait.
And by the way, everybody, Kimberly Lovi is coming out to the Super Bowl. So you will see her in some of our pictures and in some of our videos.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for that shout out. Now you're embarrassing me. Back to you, my friend. Okay. Now, this is something important around structure. So can you provide behind the scenes ways that you personally set yourself up for a structured, productive day and how you might apply discipline to your life outside of football, of course, for folks out there that are seeking more structure?
That's a great question. And one of the things that we're doing in the league office is that we're creating a transition playbook, right? Is that we've had playbooks our whole life. And one of the reasons I love talking about Troy and Tracy and our guys at the NFL, because we're very cognizant about making sure that we create structure for our guys and their families when they're transitioning. And we understand that, sometimes knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do, right? But I always tell people, let's take baby steps first. Let's first start with waking up. What do you do when you wake up?
No, actually tell us what time you wake up. Now I really want to know.
So I wake up a lot of times around 4:15, around 4:20, and I'm at the gym by 4:45, 4:50, and I'm working out at 5 o'clock. And then what I'll do is I'll come home, I'll make a shake. I make shakes every morning, or I'll make it that night. And we have an entire regimen when it comes to make a shake, drink your water, do this. But we have a regimen. But it's not easy though. That was something that you had to work towards. And if you have a partner that will work with you towards that, it makes it even better, right? But if you don't have a mindset around, I can just wing it. I'm not really good at winging it. I'm really not. Like I will find some time to just waste when I'm winging it and I don't have that structure. Like for instance, when you send me emails and you go, this is what I need from you pertaining to your podcast, I'm like, thank you. Because I know if I don't receive that email, I'm going to drop the ball somewhere, right? I know that about myself. So really, Kim, it's knowing yourself. Knowing what do I need? I need some accountability. I love accountability. If I have accountability, I long for accountability. I long to be a part of, okay, that's what you need me to do. Got it. Okay, got it. Okay, I'm on, right? If we can long for someone to speak life into us and to help us kind of create that guidance, it helps us as far as transitioning.
I absolutely love it. And actually, Leonard and I'm going to let them in on our little inside joke here because Leonard, he has a lot of balls in the air and everything he touches, he does well. And he takes personal accountability, which we're going to get to next. That's a teaser. But our inside joke about it, by the way, you're getting your second master's, right? Something like that. Leadership. No big deal. So we joke because we say, yeah, when people ask us, this is, between us, when people say to Leonard, how do you do it all? Or they say to me, we both are like, what are you doing at 4:30 in the morning? Because we're both up at 4:30 working. We're doing our thing.
We're up working.
We're ready to go.
Either find a way to do it or find excuses. You can't find both though.
That's it.
You can't find both. This is my first master's, but I am getting a master's right now in executive leadership from Liberty University.
That's so impressive. It's so incredible with all the things you have going on. Truly. I mean, it is, you motivate me to elevate. to that.
Motivate to elevate. I like.
Motivate to elevate. We can get some merch with that or something.
Motivate to elevate. Ooh, that's so good.
That is good. You're going to use that one of your talks.
I like it.
I like it too. And so to that end, what do you feel is kind of the role of accountability to other people? So you really hit on the point of, start with yourself being accountable. What does that look like to you? What does that mean to you?
Oh my gosh. So my mentor, David Gandy, I have to talk about him. 75-year-old. We met each other in 1999. I was speaking at the baccalaureate for his daughter's high school graduation.
Wow.
And I'm the speaker at his daughter's baccalaureate. And he had told his wife, I'm not going to that baccalaureate today. And his wife looked at him like, boy, please. But anyway, so he was probably 50 something years old at that point. Now he's 75 years old. And we call ourselves Ebony and Ivory because he's a gray haired white dude. And then you have this young black dude who's like 20 years younger. And I remember him saying this to me one day. This was like 20 years ago. He said, I'm a little disappointed in you. And I was like, what? Why? He said, I'm a little disappointed that you're not further along in your life as you are right now. I was like, what? The impact of that. So this is scripture. It says the wounds of a brother. And it talks about the accountability of a friend. He said there are friends that stick closer than a brother. And what he shared with me that day it motivated to elevate me. It literally motivated me in a way that wasn't even measurable. It wasn't quantifiable. Because I still think about that and I share that with him. And he said, buddy, I loved you even then. And I love you even more now. And I knew that you needed to hear those words coming out of my mouth. And I did. And it elevated me. It made me level up as a man, as a husband, as a father, and just was like, I was not just accepting the status quo anymore in my life. And I believe that I am more than just an athlete. So game was on. Just like my boy Steve Shinbaum says, game on.
Game on, baby. I love it. That's awesome. I would love to have your mentor. I'd love for him to come on. I'm just letting you know, it's a little personal request. I'd love to hear that conversation.
Done. That is going to happen right there. I can promise you that'll happen.
There's so many good guests coming on. People have no idea what's coming. There's so many good ones.
I'm going to have people like my boy Mike Rucker on, Scott Turner, who just became the secretary of HUD. I want to have people like Tracy Perlman on, who's leading in our NFL office, Troy Vincent, who is executive senior vice president for the NFL. Like, I want to have game changers on. I want to have people from the projects on that I grew up with, and really to talk about growing up in the projects to where, we had to go to each other's house and all they had was a frozen egg in the refrigerator. And you're like, man, let's go to somebody else's house. And you're literally looking for food in your friends' homes and no one has any. And those are real moments that I really want to share and to talk about. How do we continue to move even in the midst of not having? We have some people coming on this podcast that they're going to blow the top off of this place.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. Now, can we talk about your family and specifically your role as a father? Because I know you have very strong conviction around this notion of accountability and pouring into your kids. And just from knowing you, it's very evident to me that you are a very devoted, loving, invested father. Can you talk a little bit about your beliefs around that?
Oh man, I have failed in so many different areas of my life. That is one area that I don't really shy away from anymore because it's real. And, and you've gotten to know me. You know how much I love my family. You know how much I love my kids. I love spending time. I love investing into our kids. We have 3 kids. Lindsay's 27. She lives in Spain, Madrid. Connor is a junior in college, and Chase is a senior in high school, getting ready to go to college. And Kim, I have to say this, and I don't know if this is where we were going, but failing as, going through a divorce was very difficult for me because I was really one of those husbands that, that used to say, "Oh, yeah, we don't talk about that in our house. Like we don't talk about that." And when God says, "I hate divorce," you don't really realize what that means until you're going through it. And you're like this is the hardest thing I've ever been through in my entire life, because you are letting down so many people. And I have so much empathy and so much love for people to where when you feel that you're letting down your family who trust you and people who love you and your parents who raised you and your friends who stuck by you, they all of a sudden feel torn as well. Right? So you're not just ripping, a marriage, you're ripping relationships that have taken 30, 40 years to build. Right? And I remember this, and I have to share this. I remember being on the stairs one day in my home. I was on the stairs by myself, and I was crying. This was after the divorce, and I'm sitting on my stairs. I'm crying, just crying to myself. But it's not for anybody out there to feel sorry for me. That is not the point of me sharing this story. But I heard and I don't know if it was an audible voice, but it was like the Lord said, "My plan is still a perfect plan." And it was like, what? He was like, "My plan is still a perfect plan." And I was like, whoa, whew, just, I don't know. It was amazing.
You're making me cry. I'm just letting you know.
Hey, you're about to make me cry. Why did you do that? You did that intentionally.
Well, I think really, this is really important. What you just said is really important, especially, for those of you that have something in your mind of how things, quote unquote, should be, whether that's due to your faith or how you were raised or just your own self expectations.
Yes, that's right.
I think it's really important that we give ourselves grace, that when we fall or things unfold in a different way, that we know that we are okay as long as you pick yourself
That's
up,
it.
just like we talked about at the beginning.
And don't try to do it on your own. Like I had some amazing people in my corner that even through that transition, and I'm sure, we all need somebody in our corner. And now when I look at my life, with Kim, with my wife, with Lindsay and how she's growing, and Connor and Chase, our family, our friends. And the Father is a God of forgiveness. And he tells us, he says that I have thrown your sin into the sea of forgetfulness. To where he says that for as the east is from the west, I will not remind you of your things that you did. And so all of those reminders and how we continue to hold ourselves hostage of our past, a lot of times that's coming from us, and it's coming from us allowing other people to hold us back in those shadows. When the Father is saying, no, I need for you to be cast out of the shadow and for you to propel forward and move forward. That is where I want you today, is to be impactful.
That's it.
And so that is what I'm so thankful for, is that people in my life that help me to continue to remember that.
I love it. Thank you for being so raw and real about that, because I know that's probably really a difficult thing to talk about, and you're being brave enough to share it and be authentic. And I know you're going to help so many people by doing that.
I'm going to have people like Dale Davis on.
Oh God, I love that you're going to bring all that forward. This kind of does take me back to an experience that you had with your father. You talked about him owning a pool hall. So you talked about your dad briefly, and you
Yes.
talked about him owning a pool hall, and essentially he was an entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
And it showed you the importance of owning something, and that being an entrepreneur is good. But can you just share a little bit about entrepreneurship and sort of, because you made this huge leap that is so different, and it's really pivotal that you were able to go from being a professional athlete, making all these sacrifices, putting everything you had into it, and then moving into a completely brand new career path
Mm-hmm.
successfully. And now here you are 24 years later. Can you talk a little bit about that transition and some of
Yeah.
your success?
Yeah, witnessing my dad. So my dad was not a great father. He was a great friend to people, but he was not a great father. And and so there are certain things that he did show me. One was that, oh, you can own your own business. Oh, okay, got it. But I didn't understand the functionalities of that, right? When I was coming out of the NFL, I started studying for my Series 7, 65, 63. And I was like, maybe I want to be a financial advisor. And I started realizing I don't want to be a financial advisor. And so what I started doing was I started coaching financial advisors. But I met this guy named Rich Campy, who's a great friend of mine, and he was counting in one of my classes. 1, 2, 3. I was doing this exercise class for the YMCA one weekend. He was like, 1, let's go. Oh! And he was so loud and rambunctious. I was like, dude, why are you counting so loud? And he was like, man, this has me fired up. This has me fired up. And this was over like 25 years ago. And after that, he said, man, you remind me of my coaching. This is what I talk about in my coaching, the same things you're talking about. And did you know that he was very instrumental in me creating my coaching practice? Because I heard this dude over counting. And so we started doing speaking engagements together. We created our first podcast 25 years ago called Capture the Champion Within.
Wait,
Right?
can you show everyone? I've seen this.
Do you guys want to see this? Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
we want to
hold
see
on.
it. Yes, you guys want to see it. You're not going to believe this.
So 25 years ago, we created this. And it was a podcast before podcast started. We created a CD of Capture the Champion Within, with he and I talking about how do you capture the champion within. And what we started to realize was, and we didn't know what we didn't know. And sometimes it's figuring out, like they used to call me Jamaican because they used to go, man, Leonard has 8 jobs, man. Because I was really good at networking and being in meetings. And I didn't know why I was in meetings. All I knew is that I was in meetings. I was like, I'm so busy. Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Man, I'm going to another meeting right now. I'm not making any money, but I'm going to a meeting, right? And that's really when I started to learn that, okay, dude, you need to put some structure. You need to ask some real questions, and you really need to understand what entrepreneurial business is. And you need to understand how and what questions to ask.
Oh, yes.
Because sometimes I didn't know what questions to ask, and I didn't really know where to look, if that makes sense.
It makes so much sense. And I'm already thinking, like, for those of you that might be in like a sales role, and actually I think this is a great topic that we should add to a totally separate episode on.
Okay.
And
That would be awesome.
something else that you brought up is around financial success and managing finances. Now, I know this again should be, it's totally at least a separate episode.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
any kind of just maybe quick tips or thoughts on that subject, and then you'll do a deep dive episode perhaps on that.
It is very difficult sometimes to find the right people to trust with your finances. I was very blessed to find people like Bill Bradshaw with PMI. At that time, they were PM. Then they went to Team Best. Him and David Rodarte. When I was just a young man coming out of college, I remember Troy State came to me. They were Troy State at the time, and they said, "You owe some money." And I was like, "What do you mean I owe money? I'm broke." And so and I don't know if people know this, but even when you get drafted into the NFL, when they call your name and they go, Leonard Wheeler, drafted in the 3rd round, the last pick in the 3rd round, you're still broke, right? And so even though I got drafted, I was still as broke as I was before I got drafted. I just had future monies coming at some point. But really understanding how to find the correct financial advisor, how to have those real conversations around finance and learning how to save money. Because what happens a lot of times is that as soon as you get money, you start thinking about how do I spend it? Instead of saying, you know what, I get this money, I'll tie 10%, I'll save 15%, and then I'll spend this much on my mortgage or rent, etc. Learning how to manage those pieces, that's not easy at times, but it takes a lot of diligence. It takes a lot of accountability. Again, we're going back to that accountability, right? And it takes a lot of you not trying to live like the Joneses who are next door to you. So, I mean, but this is a subject that I would really love for us to continue to dive in because I have a lot of ideas and conversations around this, Kimberly.
Yeah, I think this is such a meaty discussion that thank you just for highlighting just a couple of quick thoughts, but it's I know you have a lot to say and it's a very important topic. Now, there might be people out there that look at you and they're like, "Wow, Leonard, how did he become a coach and a public speaker and somebody that can consult with all these huge, incredible organizations?" If somebody wants to launch into a speaking career, what would be maybe the first 1 or 2 steps that they might be able to take just to kind of get the ball rolling, get in the game?
The first thing that I would do is that I would purchase your name,
Okay.
purchase your URL. And if that is KimberlyLovi.com or if it's thekimberlylovi.com. And so that the first thing I would say is to purchase your name. Number 2 is that I would tell them to find some classes that they can enroll in terms of speaking classes, being on stage. It could be improv classes. I've been very blessed to be around people like a Steve Shinbaum. I've been blessed to I started speaking as a rookie in the NFL. I was speaking to high schools and middle schools for FCA and Athletes in Action. So I've really put myself out there and really don't be afraid to fail. Like, listen, you're not going to sound like a professional on the first time you stand up and you start talking. It's okay. Trust me, even after you feel judged, I think the most harsh judgment comes from myself than it does from other people, even to this day. I am very self-critical because there are things that I know that I want to learn to do better. And when I don't do that, when I don't feel I level up, Kim, sometimes I feel like I've failed and I have to learn how to extend grace to myself.
Mhm.
And that's what I would say to everybody out there. Learn how to extend grace to yourself.
What is your current health and physical exercise routine today?
So just like I told you, I love waking up and getting up. And what's irritating to me is when people go, I'm not a morning person. OMG. Like every time I hear people say that, it does something to my inner, to my
Okay.
and look, sometimes I might go to bed late, not intentionally because I'm trying to finish things. But even if I do, I can't allow that to dictate how I wake up in the morning. That is something that I have to learn to sacrifice at times. Now, sleep is so vitally important. Oh my gosh. If you think you can make it without sleep, good luck. Because at some point, it's going to catch up with you, right? At some point, it just will. Sometimes, Kim, I'll get into bed at 8:30. Our kids are like, are you guys going to bed already? And we're like, yeah. Now, we might not go to sleep until 9:30, but we're at least headed that direction to wake up at 4 a.m., right? But when you wake up and you talk about, oh, I'm so tired, I'm not a morning person, it's because I stayed on the phone last night texting and I was looking through all of my YouTube and I was swooshing through my Instagram and oh my God, Facebook kept me up. I'm like, I don't want to hear all that crap. Like, I don't want to hear your freaking excuses. Like, I don't. I mean, that's a low tolerance of mine. And maybe that's something that you all can pray on me and lay your hand on my head. But what I'm saying is that sometimes it's so irritating when I hear people complain about having to get up and work out and having to get up and go to work. Oh my gosh, I'm going. So what if we gave all of that away to other people who are more grateful than you are? That's
Oh,
literally. I think we have such an abundance in America at times to where we forget how to be grateful for the little things that the Lord has given us.
I agree. First of all, you can always start today, but if you're struggling to find that will and discipline, maybe start with gratitude, like Leonard's saying, because
Mm,
truly your health is a gift and
that's
it is
good.
fragile.
Yeah. And maybe it's just going for a walk, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's going for a 30-minute walk 3 days a week. And maybe it's just starting somewhere. And just be okay with starting somewhere. You don't
Anywhere.
have anywhere. And then, like I said, if it could be a 10-minute walk, it could be 20 minutes, it can be 30 minutes.
I love it. Thank you for leaving us with that. And there's so much that you are going to be unpacking. Thank you so much for listening. And
Yes.
invite them to send you a DM at Leonard Wheeler 7 on Instagram, which is also going to be linked in the show notes along with all of his other wonderful handles. And just request topics or comment on his latest post. And we will have him address those questions and maybe give you a shout out. Unless you want to be anonymous, then let us know. But it's engagement. So let us know what you want to hear from him on, what questions you have, because this guy is a wealth of knowledge.
Well, and I have to give my friend a shout out because she's not going to do it if I don't do it. I just want to thank you, Kimberly, again for your diligence and for your professionalism. You've been a consummate professional, and you really do a great job of making sure that all things are aligned correctly when it comes to creating this structure of doing a podcast. And you have really kept me in a way. And I don't know if you guys know Kimberly or if you follow her on her LinkedIn or her Instagram, etc. But she do an exceptionally well job of making sure that everything is streamlined correctly. And so from a structure perspective, from a motivational perspective, I appreciate you, my friend. And I thank you for helping me grow the winning edge.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on your very first episode. And
Let's go!
congratulations.
Let's go!
We're doing it. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited. All right. With that, thank you guys for listening and tune into next week's episode.
Let's go. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this week's episode of The Winning Edge. You can write in and ask your questions on my Instagram page at Leonard Wheeler 7, and I will address your questions on an upcoming episode. If this episode helped you, I would love for you to share it with your friends, colleagues, and family. Share the episode with those that you feel can benefit from it. You can also follow me on Instagram, TikTok, X, and LinkedIn, found in the show notes. I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe now and let's build your legacy.